Hey there. Today, we're going to have an informal conversation where I'm going to share with you a story from the weekend of how I realized that I needed to use tapping. And I'm just going to walk you through step by step what I did and pull out of it how you can use tapping to better live your design, just make your life work better. So, if that sounds good, then let's do it. I'm going to assume that you have met me before. If you haven't, then feel free to watch some of the other videos in the tapping playlist. I'll put that here after I'm done here, and I'll edit the video. So here's what happened. I was at Parkrun, which is a running event that is every Saturday morning. And I had been following a dad and a tiny little girl. She was probably about 5 years old. And Parkrun, if you don't know it, is a community running event that happens every Saturday in lots of places. And most Saturday mornings, I will be at a Parkrun. And it's 5 kilometers long, which is, I think, 3 miles. It's a long way for a teeny tiny little girl who basically is like lucky to come up to my waist. She's very little. And I just happened to be slow running about the same pace as this little girl who was working very hard to get the parkrun done. And I was observing how the dad was interacting with the daughter. And it wasn't too bad. I get a bit concerned about some of the behaviors that I see with parents and how they're treating children. But she was pretty determined. I could see that she was learning a lot about how important it is to run really fast and get a PB, which is not my preference. My preference is that children have fun and they play, but it's not going to kill her. It's not going to be catastrophic if she grows up with an achievement focus. But what did happen is as we got towards like further and further along, she got more and more and more tired, which is understandable because her legs are about like this long, right? These teeny tiny little legs. And what I noticed is just as we were about to finish, she had a total temper tantrum and was saying, no, like, no, I don't want to keep going. No, I've had enough. And the dad was overriding that. She's like, come on. He's like, come on, we're almost there. Keep going. And she's crying. She's stopped. She stood still. This is a girl who, like 3 kilometers earlier, was running really fast and was really determined, but she was just out of juice, the little tiny creature that she is, right? Which is completely understandable. And the dad was pushing her and trying to find clever, helpful ways to basically manipulate her to run down the hill because he thought it was in her best interest. Now, I, following along, felt this massive rise of anger. And what I really wanted to say to him was like, dude, will you fucking listen to your daughter? She said no. Like, can you see how teeny tiny she is? You know, she's like a third of your size. She's had enough. Just let her have a temper tantrum for 5 minutes. Let her have a rest. Let her sit down. Let her just walk really slowly to the finish line. It will not matter. But because I was also shamed a lot in my childhood and I was convinced to do things that I didn't want to do, but I could not help myself for wanting to like stand up for this little tiny child. What came out of my mouth to the dad, who I'd had very brief interactions with over those 5Ks and who didn't know me from a bar of soap, was, will you please listen to your daughter when she says no? And then I went on, and this is important for the story. So if you're really determined to use to use tapping in your life, this will be worth following along with the story with what I'm saying here. The next thing that came out of my mouth was something like, listening to her no is how she's going to learn how to say no to men when she's older. Now, I was really happy with myself that I had enough connection to my anger that I could stand up for this little girl and go, hey, that's not okay. He was doing the best that he knew. And it was clear from the way that he was behaving. He had also been raised with a lot of shame because of the way that I could see him communicating with his daughter throughout the run. But I was happy to see that I now, through all the tapping I've done, had enough connection to my anger that I could say, nope, this is not okay. Nope, please do this differently. but also that I had enough the anger wasn't the part of me that was really angry wasn't overrunning me. So I didn't lose my shit at the dad because it's not his fault. He is trying the best he can with the programming he's been given. And so it managed to come out in this socially, contextually appropriate way of a firm but clear comment on the way past. Now, I thought this morning I was going to do a YouTube live and share with you about how, as projectors, sometimes there are situations where we might choose not to wait for the invitation. This guy did not ask for my guidance about how to raise his child. And I was like, yes, this is a really helpful thing to talk about. Sometimes we just need to stand up for people. Sometimes we just need to say the thing that needs to be said because we have this feeling inside of us that says, I will not forgive myself unless I say the thing that needs saying. And that even as a projector, if he may not take on board what I'm saying, he may not take it seriously, he may just be annoyed. But what I know is that I've put a little earworm in his ear and he's not going to be able to forget it. It's going to make him think, even if he doesn't like me, I don't care, because I've made him pause and I've made him think and stop and reflect on the situation, that maybe all of the other people who ran past who did nothing, there was an opportunity missed there for the sake of that little girl. And I care, you've probably heard me talk about in other videos so much, I care so much about the well-being of our children that I'm like, I think it is incumbent upon all of us adults to look after all of the children in whatever way that makes sense for the context. So that was my plan. All weekend I was thinking, yep, okay, I can talk about it in a human design lens, but here's what happened. I went to sleep on Saturday night, and when I woke up in the middle of the night, I was still thinking about the situation. And I was thinking about it during the day on Sunday. And I was thinking about it when I was, when I woke up last night, Sunday night, and I was still thinking about it. And I was like, hang on a second. There's something here. And here's the point for you. If something happens and you're happy with how you addressed it at the time, I'm happy with what I did. I think that that was the right thing for me to do in that situation. But the fact that it's still bugging me days later meant that this was something I needed to tap on. It meant that this is something that was way more about that man and that child who I had never met before 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. And I might never see again because I don't regularly go to that park run. I usually go somewhere else. I was like, this is something personal. So when you have an interaction with someone and days later you're still thinking about it, what you need to know is that situation is reminding you of something from your own childhood. So this morning when I went for my morning walk, I took a route where I thought I was unlikely to run into people that I might know. And I'm always a fan, and I'm always reminding my clients that tapping walks are a great idea. You can, if you haven't seen my video where I talk about the finger points and how you can just press and hold and rub the finger points like you can see me doing here, it's incredibly helpful because then you can just be walking and be rubbing these finger points at the same time. It's very awkward to do this. It's a good way to draw attention when you don't want anyone to pay attention to you when you're walking down the street, but nobody's going to notice this, which is great. So I did a tapping walk and I hung out with the part of me. I got curious about the part of me and that was still thinking about this dad and this little girl. And I did some really gentle tapping, the way I teach my clients with trauma-informed tapping, which is just safe and effective, tailored to you tapping that doesn't force you to like use particular words or work with a particular script. And I just hung out with that part of me that was stressed out about it. And then I got to see, oh, that's what this is really about. Oh, this is why this is still bothering me, right? And so I know that I've made a massive improvement in terms of feeling better about that situation internally within myself, because about halfway through the walk, I found my mind drifting to the next thing that I wanted to pay attention to. I was like, great, I must be done. And it's that simple. Now we can use situations like that as an entry point into much deeper work. And I knew that for me, this thing around having somebody override my no is like there's some really big chunky stuff still in my body and mind of the experience that I've been through. And some of you will have heard me like point to some of those things in other videos, and I might do some more about that at another point in time if it's helpful for what we're doing here on the channel. But I didn't need to dive into that depth today. All I needed to do was be with the part of me that was like looping, right? And it can be that simple. Once you know how to do some really simple, easy, effective, do it on the go type tapping, then you can fit it into your day in like 5-minute bits here or there. I probably spent less than 10 minutes as I was doing a 30-minute walk, maybe 8 minutes. And then I probably won't think about that situation again unless you guys are asking me questions in the comments on this one, right? So that's how simple it can be. So if you would like to learn how to do trauma-informed tapping with me, so tapping the way I teach it, safe, effective, you can slot it into tiny bits in your day so that you don't get caught looping, then have a look in the video description. Below all of my videos, I will put a link to usually how you can jump on emails and also links to coaching. So if that sounds like something you would like, then you can check that out. And if this video is helpful, please give it a like, because that will tell YouTube to send, connect more people who are looking for really powerful tools around how to use tapping in your life to make the quality of your life better. Oh, and there's one other thing I want to do. I want to tie it back to human design. So what was interesting for me to notice is that my ability to be able to discern how I wanted to deal with this situation at Parkrun on Saturday morning was heavily affected by how much awareness I had of my internal state. I know that if that situation had happened, even just a few years ago, I would have said nothing because I would have felt frozen, stuck. I might have been trying too hard to follow my human design strategy to the T without seeing any opportunity for nuance or gray or situations where sometimes we just have to say the thing, even if the other person isn't able to receive it, even if the other person is annoyed by us, even if it doesn't fit the tick box perfectly. So I wouldn't have had maybe the courage or the capacity to be able to say, hey, that's not okay. I probably also wouldn't have had, even 6 months ago, access to sufficient anger to be like, dude, this is not okay. And now I am far more likely to call out behaviors that are not okay, because sometimes people don't have the capacity to be able to stand up for themselves and they need somebody else to do it for them so they can see what it looks like. And my ability to be able to know how to say something and not be attached to somebody not really receiving the projector guidance, all of that has been informed by the depth of deconditioning that I've done. And that's why I continue to play with tapping more than a decade later. And yes, I've refined it a lot in that period of time. But essentially, what I'm doing, this process is very similar to what I first learned a very long time ago, which is to use tapping as a way to notice, whoop, something's really bothering me, and to like chip away a little bit at those things, because it's so easy to fit in tiny little windows, in tiny little sections of your day, and then be able to like move on with your day. Okay, so that's it for now. I hope you're well.